6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill show on 710 KNUS. It is Friday, TGIF, June 21st. And I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and sometimes, most of the time, pretty crazy. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. It's kind of the final lap as these candidates for the primary this Tuesday are out and about making their last-ditch arguments as to why they need to be voted for in their particular races. And in the 9 o'clock hour, Stephen Varela is going to be joining us. He's a candidate for Congressional District 3, which is the Western Slope.
Yeah, it's the one that Boebert used to be in.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's where that is. And it'll be interesting to talk to him. Former Democrat, now Republican, as far as why he switched. And it was kind of fun yesterday afternoon. Spent some time with my oldest son, and we talked about mailers yesterday. And that started a conversation in our house about the large number of mailers. And he was kind of asking about why, because he's seen them too come through the mailbox. And I kind of walked him through some of the psychology and advertising and marketing that's contained in there. And I showed him certain things about why colors are used, why logos are used in certain ways. And the part that he found the most fascinating is the basic layout of the advertisement. And I talked to him. I'm like, listen, we can go through these and I can tell you who's got a really, really good consultant and who's got a marginal consultant, who's got a bad consultant based on the visual appeal and how the mailer is set up, because there only are a certain specific eye patterns, as you know, that you want to draw the eye when you're going over the top of the mailer. There's checks, there's some X's, there's a zigzag. And so are you fulfilling that? Are you fulfilling the basic eye tracking in order to get the message across? And so we went through the idea of, okay, here's this piece of the message, here's this piece of the message. What is your eye drawing between it? Why is it doing this line? And the fact that you only usually browse those mailers and those type of printed pieces in certain ways. So how is this ingested? And he's like, this is a lot of fun. I'm like, I know. And so we're kind of going through the idea that some of these suck and some of them are really, really good. There was a couple of them. I think it's the guy yesterday that we talked about, Mike. I think his opponent, really smart, really, really effective as far as visually how they put together the mailers. Mike's a little more messy. I can see what he's doing. The things resonate, but his primary opponent, the person that is designing his mailers, spot on. Hire that person now. I'm not saying the person is going to win, but that company knows what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. Those things were on point. Yeah, it was. And I'm watching, like, this is a perfect Z. And I look at this, I'm like, this is a diagonal that they're pulling you here. Look at what they're doing here. And I go, and look what and the idea of the images they're bringing you through. Yep. I'm like, very clever, very clever. That's whoever that guy has hired is spot on. I mean, I'd put that in the Rolodex. They're really good. Yeah. Again, don't know if they're going to win, but their effectiveness of what they're doing is for the print.
And we've had a lot of these folks come by the show and called in and visited the studio just yesterday. Peter, I got a lot of positive feedback on him.
He was really great.
A lot of people that were like, I'd never heard of him before, but man, I really like him. And even if this is not his race, and I'll be honest, that was the biggest thing. We kind of got into it.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like a lawmaker to me.
No.
In the sense of a legislator.
Yeah.
Right. Working a bill through the process. All that. He seemed really happy, like Mike Kaufman does now, of being like, oh, you got a problem here? Let me make some phone calls. We'll get it fixed.
Yeah, he seemed like the guy that wanted to fix things. And what I appreciated about it is he seemed to the idea that, okay, if I get the job, the people on the other side are crazy, don't like them, but we've got to figure out a way to have them help us fix the problems. So how do we get there together? Not saying we need to wrap our arms around the Democrats and say, yes, we believe in the safe injection sites, but what are the things they're in favor of that we can use to our largest advantage? And he's a lot of fun. In fact, we're going to try to connect off show after all the politics are over, because depending on what he has in the future ahead, I would love to have his voice be part of the show, kind of reacting.
Yeah.
Because of who he is, because of his experience, and and being in this race. So if he doesn't win, we may try to see what he's got in front of him. But I'd like to fold him in as somewhat of a regular guest to just kind of talk to him because
smart guy.
Yeah, smart guy. Really interesting perspective. Who
is that guy that ran in the Democrat primary? Really smart tech guy in 2020.
Oh, I don't know. I'm trying to think.
I'm trying to remember. He's from New York. Asian guy too.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm thinking?
I can
you remember?
See him,
you
but
can see him, but you don't remember
yeah,
his name. Yeah, I don't either. But
yeah, if they don't win, I throw the names away.
But again, really smart guy, right? Where it's like they just think differently, and it's fun to include them in the way they think.
Oh yeah, and I would love from both his experience in politics and his experience in business for him just kind of handicap certain things. Like the idea being, okay, yesterday we talked about the horrible mess that Denver has made with the homeless, as far as the amount of money they're spending and the amount of money they're spending on immigrants. I would love to just sit down with Stephen, and aside when he's outside of the election campaign, to just have him put on his business hat and say, wait, as a businessman, if you were given the keys and say, you need to design this program, how does it work from an economic and business side? How do we make this thing work? Not as a government program.
Andrew Yang. I always love our listeners.
So
way
nice.
Smarter than us.
So nice. They're so much smarter. Yeah, it is great.
6823.
Yeah, so that's, it's great. He had a great voice, and I wish we had a lot. And again, Lauren spending the entire hour with us was absolutely fantastic. That was more than generous, and it was a lot of fun. And I can see why she is rising to the top inside of the GOP primary, where people want to fight her. That's really who she is. I mean, I think that at her core, she's a really, really good person, and she's a fighter. So if that's what the voters want,
and took that one question really well from Ben.
She really did, and I appreciate Ben. I really appreciate Ben coming in, asking the harder question, and she did a really good job with it. It was really good. That was a nice exchange.
So today we've got a full show again. Candidates visiting. Stephen Varela, candidate for Congressional District 3, will be with us in the 9 o'clock hour, and a whole lot of news to cover, including Denver's universal basic income plan, which is essentially just handing free money to drug-addicted homeless people. How did that work out? Well, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. In some cases, it helped them. In some cases, it didn't. We'll be covering that as well. Also, did you see how much Portland? We thought it was bad in Colorado. $155 million on the homeless. You'll never guess what Portland is spending. And is it working or not? We're going to cover that as well. And then liberal women despise Republican women. I mean, really don't like them. An article in the New Yorker or in New York Magazine all about that. Big article, just laying into you crazy conservative women, abandoning all your principles and your femininity. Come on. It'll be an interesting conversation. And then Robert F. Kennedy not at the CNN debate. Should he be there? Alvin Bragg dismisses some important cases, but not the president's case. Although that's already been tried. But you'll be a little surprised to see what kind of cases Alvin Bragg decides not to prosecute. And then are tumors racist?
That was funny. I hadn't seen that video since you sent it. I'm like, what the hell is this? It was interesting. That was fun. That was entertaining.
Those racist tumors are out to get you. Plus Hollywood's Arby's shutting down. All this and more on the Jeff and Bill show today. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. 61 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 80s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the 19-year-old Aurora woman who went missing while driving home from Greeley about a week ago has been found dead. The body of Leslie Vicente was found inside a car submerged in a Weld County gravel quarry. Officials haven't said how she or the car ended up in the water, and an investigation has been launched to figure out what happened. The U.S. Supreme Court will issue more opinions today ahead of the end of the month recess. The court has yet to rule on former President Trump's claim that he's immune from prosecution for alleged crimes committed while president. President Biden and Trump preparing for next week's presidential debate. Biden is training with his advisors in Camp David, while Trump is holding policy discussions with his allies and vice presidential hopefuls. The debate will be on CNN June 27th. Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, says the election will be about kitchen table issues.
Inflation, number one. Inflation, number two. Inflation, number three. You got to deal with those first. Then there's border security, then there's foreign affairs, then there's everything else. But if you're at the kitchen table in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois right now, you don't care about anything except the fact that you're getting squeezed by 38% increases in protein, by 20% increases in energy, by housing that's not affordable. That's it. That's what matters. That's what the debate's about. Everything else, interesting, not as important.
The Hezbollah terrorist group is ramping up attacks against Israel. The State Department spokesman told reporters the Lebanon-based group is targeting civilian infrastructure inside Israel and that the U.S. is concerned the conflict is escalating. In New York AG Alvin Bragg, once again, he has dropped all criminal charges against the Hamas supporters who raised hell at Columbia last month. Rabbi Chaim Mentz.
We are now looking at what's going on in the 1930s in Germany. Jewish people had absolutely nothing, nobody protecting them. It was the government saying, your windows are being destroyed, you're getting a swastika, it's okay. We Jewish people are looking in New York, Los Angeles, we're looking all over. Where's the government protecting us? Why isn't anybody coming to us and saying, well, where are the people protesting along with us?
That's on Fox News Channel last night. A 15-year-old suspect is in custody following a shooting that injured two boys in Aurora on Wednesday. It happened near a playground outside an apartment complex along East Ford Avenue and left the two boys 12 and 14 years old with non-life-threatening injuries. The suspect faces charges of possession of a weapon by a juvenile, possession of a dangerous or illegal weapon, and obstructing a peace officer. Investigators say a Denver rideshare driver accused of sexual assault could have more victims. Nasrallah Bedru Kamal was arrested in March and faces 2 counts of sexual contact without consent and 1 count of false imprisonment. It's official. The gray wolves, reintroduced into Colorado last year, are reproducing. CPW confirms that a wolf pup was sighted in Grand County on Tuesday.
That's 3.
Thank you.
And that's a win for LA.
They are now 47-30. The Rockies dropped to 26-49.
The Rockies lose to 5-3 Thursday against the Dodgers tonight. The Nationals at Coors. And I think, Jeff, how was the game?
Oh, it was so cool to see Ohtani, man.
Yeah,
it was so cool.
stud.
What a legend.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I
that
think
was
he's,
the
I
reason
think
we
he's
went.
better. Yeah, I bet that was an experience. Hey, you know what? I happened to be watching the LA broadcast of the game, and guess who they caught on camera in the stands? Now, there's some great camera work right there. Look at that, Bob. Jeff Hunt from the Jeff and Bill show here at the ballpark today with the family, enjoying this afternoon's game. And obviously, Mr. Hunt likes to score games. He got his scorecard out here. It's amazing. I did not know all those LA broadcasters listen to the Jeff and Bill show.
He's a celebrity. My partner's a celebrity.
I will tell you, my
Exactly.
mom made the Jumbotron.
Oh, is that right?
She did. She was doing the little swim thing
No
like
way.
No
this,
kidding.
and they had the people in the stands going, and she's what is she? She's in her 70s,
Nice.
and they focused in on her. She looked great.
That's
congratulations.
awesome. That is so cool. I did that, and I was like, wait a minute. You know what? He may have shown up on one of the broadcasts, so I shouldn't mess around too much. I really wanted to
That was
go
wonderful.
dark there, but I decided to take the high road. All right, news brought
That's
to you
great,
by
Blake.
thank you. And let's see. That's all brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio. I lost my place. Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at Lair Fireplace and Patio.com. 58 in Englewood, 55 in Superior, 61 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. TGIF. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Here's your 7:10 5-day forecast. Will stay in the mid to upper 80s today, partly cloudy to cloudy. Scattered afternoon and evening showers and thunderstorms will be possible, a few of which could be strong. Low temperatures tonight will be in the upper 50s to near 60s. Sunny and warm for the weekend. Near 90 Saturday, low 90 Sunday. Only isolated thunderstorms this weekend. Staying very warm into Monday and Tuesday. Cooler thunderstorms Wednesday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
It's a good idea to hand homeless people cash. And I raise that question because it can come in a number of different ways, right? You can hand them cash if they're just on the side of the street, right? They oftentimes have their signs there. Douglas County making the argument, no sexually harms them. We have services. It encourages addiction. Bob Cote used to talk about this too. He would actually give people a gift certificate to a free meal. And I think in all of his years, only a handful of people ever actually took advantage of it. What they were looking for was money for alcohol consumption, drug use, those types of things. And so is it a good idea? Well, Denver wants to try this thing called a basic income project where they essentially hand out to homeless people cash. And they're making the argument that it's actually saving a little bit of taxpayer dollars. Here's from the Denver Post. The Denver Basic Income Project has saved lives, at least anecdotally, they say. According to a new research, the first-year pilot program that provided no strings attached cash to 807 homeless adults also saved taxpayers significant money. I think that's a bit of a stretch. You'll see why I think that's a bit of a stretch. The savings manifested in program participants staying in homeless shelters less frequently, requiring fewer ambulance rides, emergency room visits and hospital stays, and spending fewer nights in jail or drug and alcohol treatment centers, a report released this week said. Decreases in those categories added up to more than $589,000 saved, according to estimates from researchers with the Center for Housing and Homeless Research at the University of Denver. But here's why I think it's a bit of a stretch to say that it saves taxpayers significant money. Because the project has paid out $9.4 million to participants since it was launched. So like 600,000 of 9.4 million significant taxpayers. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think so. Not at that number.
Here's why I'm a little torn on this. Okay, Billy, you think as a conservative be like rent and raving. This is just the worst thing ever. I can't believe that taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, we're giving free stuff to nobody. Yeah.
We talked about this yesterday. I do not like the poverty industrial complex. And when I talk about the poverty industrial complex is I think you have entire systems set up where people are essentially paid to manage homelessness, not alleviate homelessness. And why I say manage is because they're not actually rewarded for getting people out of homelessness. They're just paid salaries to manage it.
Yeah.
And so that's why you don't see homelessness improving, really, in the city of Denver, especially in Portland, which we'll get to later. We've kind of hidden people away. We put them in hotels. And as we saw yesterday, a small fraction, 4.5% of the people have actually gotten out of homelessness and are now paying a regular month-to-month lease somewhere with more permanent housing. 4.5%. So we're just kind of tucking them away and we're just managing it, and it's costing a tremendous amount of money. So I don't like this poverty industrial complex. So part of me goes, well, if we maybe we just give them cash. And the other thing that I say about this is that, look, we kind of live in a world where we do this within families with wills and estates. And I think very few people, and you guys can call and correct me on this, are actually totally financially independent. I think some people rely on family members, or they received estates that were gifted to them at some point earlier. And so, maybe some people out there are totally financially independent and build it up. But I think, people rely on the gifts and generosity that comes from families. You maybe take vacations because your parents pay for it or your grandparents pay for it. And so we do help each other out.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Which is interesting with the idea that everyone is worried about the death tax because it only affected really the top echelon of earners. And it was weird that was a pushback. And the problem that I have with the idea of a universal basic income is what's the threshold and who we're trying to help.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is if we are giving the free money to a single mother who's struggling with housing and she's working 40 hours a week, she doesn't have a significant amount of debt, or maybe she does based on credit card because she's had to use it in order to pay for the lifestyle things. She has a steady job, but because the economic conditions, those things don't meet together, her work and what she has to pay, because as you know, Jeff, kids are really, really expensive. Really expensive.
Nah.
Yeah. So that.
Have you seen the Ferrari?
Exactly. And at that point, I think I can get on board. But the idea that we have someone that is on the street, doesn't want to get off the street, and will use it to perpetuate their addiction, then I have a problem.
Yeah. And to this point, this is where I kind of bounce. Gosh, guys, this is where I bounce back and forth, right? So one, I've gone through the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University. I even paid for Jenna Griswold to go to Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University, because a lot of the debt you put yourself into, you do yourself. It's bad decision making. You eat out at restaurants all the time. You go on vacations you can't afford. You buy cars you can't afford. You live in a house that's too expensive for you. We make these bad financial decisions all the time. It puts us into a massive amount of credit card debt. And that is, in many cases, our own doing. So you give people more money and they're claiming they have money problems, but they've got a 60-inch LCD smart TV in their house.
There was you bring up the Dave Ramsey, and I think it was Ramsey in the last month had a young woman that calls in, and she and her fiance are having financial problems. And they both have decent paying 40-hour-a-week jobs, not six figures, but it can cover bills. And Ramsey's asking why they can't cover their bills. Aha. It's because in the previous 12 months, they have purchased not one, but two new SUVs. It is the loan payment on two $85,000 vehicles that are putting them underwater. And Dave's asking, why did you buy those vehicles? Knowing, and the person at the sales thing said that the payments were going to be, that's their job. Why was that? And he basically is like, no, why were you shopping in that price range? Why were you doing? And that's what he got down to, is like, you made this choice. So in order to get out of this, you either have to sell both of the vehicles if you need 2 cars, or sell one, and one of you has to drive something crappy. And that just broke her. It's like, and that's part of it. And I think, unfortunately, some of these younger kids make the decision to buy the bigger fancy car because they're not going to be able to afford the house. And I have seen a little bit of that transition already in my kids, where it's not, they really aren't sure if they're ever going to be able to afford to buy a house in the economy. And so the luxury item becomes the car.
And part of it is the economy. The other thing too is you have the greatest concentration of wealth ever locked in with the baby boomer generation.
Yeah.
So this isn't just me talk. Dennis Prager talked about this the other day, about how you have in the context of, you got to get your kids out of these woke public schools, that if you as a grandparent are sitting on a mountain of cash and your kids want to send their kids to a religious school and you're not willing to help them with it, and they're struggling to get by, and it's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day, and they're not sure they can make this thing work. That's where I kind of, with the universal basic income, I'm not like so cold-hearted, because I'm like, a lot of us rely on help from those generations that are above us.
And I'll throw something else in there about the baby boomers. This is something that is a personal bitch for me. So I'm going to throw this on the table. This annoys the heck out of me. Is how about you freaking retire? Okay. And the reason being is because the idea was you're going to retire. Originally, it was around 55, then it became 65-ish. But we see people at those levels.
Oh, it's 75 now.
Working much beyond that. So what happens when those boomers that have ascended to the highest levels inside the organizations and are holding those highest level salaries don't get the F out of the way for the individuals in our generation that need that next stepping stone that they had access to? Why are they being able to amass so much wealth? Many times because of those final 1 or 2 steps. What they're not realizing is between the age of around 45 to 59, usually are your prime earning years.
Right.
And Gen X is being shut out of those upper level management and top paying positions by boomers who have decided they don't want to retire.
Billy, are there some names you'd like to name here?
There are several I have in mind. But
no, it's the Prince Charles issue.
Yes.
You get to become king at 75 years old.
That's exactly it. And that's a problem. And then what the problem is, you then have the boomers sitting up there that haven't retired, and they're sitting there going, well, why are you struggling? I'm doing just fine. Well, dummy. Because of your position at this time. If you were in that position growing up, the guy above you would have already retired, would have moved on because they had a big giant that was kind of what the companies did. Now they don't. And the problem is going to be, Jeffrey, you and I, that's honestly what's going to happen is we're going to be leapfrogged, because what'll happen is by the time the boomers decide to retire, the millennials behind us will be of an age. And they're going to hire the younger executive rather than us. I'm okay with my kids
taking care of me too.
But here's the thing though. You're making that assumption. That's the thing.
So this universal basic income, we'll get to the calls here in just a second. Frank, you'll be up next. By the way, give us a call, 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Good text message here too, 8422. Hand out $9.4 million and claim that it's saving us money. Like, that's the point I was trying to make by getting 600,000 back.
Exactly.
And people believe that. It's official. We've lost our way. 8422.
It's like girl math. That's what it is. Except you should call it homeless math. It's even worse.
Mikey Johnston math.
Exactly. Yep.
So this universal basic income that the city of Denver is implementing, the program split enrollees into 3 cohorts. The first group received $1,000 per month over 12 months. The second group received a lump $6,500 lump sum at enrollment. Gosh, I'd love that. That all you had to do was enroll, and you get $6,500. No wonder inflation's driving. All right, then $500 a month for 11 months, and the members of the third group receive $50 per month over 12 months. Payments for the pilot program began in November of 2022 and continued into January of this year on a rolling basis.
Now, Jeff, if I paused right there, out of those cohorts, what do you think, if you're going to game plan it, what would you think would be the most successful way to do it? The larger sum monthly, the smaller sum, or the lump sum?
So I mean, the article kind of covers this, but you can probably guess the larger lump sum up front help people.
Yeah.
Than $50 per month over 12 months.
Yeah, that doesn't help at all because
that's
that's not going to make
Mickey D's, right?
That's not going to make any difference. And here's the part, and this is the thing that I look at is there, and this is another glitch that I've got is what happened in the industry with the idea of cost of living raises. Mm-hmm. You almost never get COLA raises anymore, and they don't, and that means that, and the reason that's an issue is you're losing 3% of your paycheck's purchasing power every year. Yep.
Right.
And that means after 4 years, you've lost 10%, if not greater. So after 3 years, you're getting close to 10%. 4 years, you're over 10%. You get into 8 years, you've lost 20% of your salary purchasing power. And that's not even spending a decade with that company if you don't get COLA raises. And that's part of it as well, is this kind of an erosion of what the money is. And so that larger lump sum, you give me $50, that's not going to connect the money that I'm losing over the course of the year. You give me the larger lump sum, I'm able to pay down a larger debt, or I can do something that can effectively change the budget inside of my family. That helps. The little bit doesn't. The allowance doesn't. But that lump sum investment, that can change a family.
So they say that the biggest category increases came among those who took the $6,500 lump sum.
Yeah, absolutely. Because imagine being able to kill off any sort of a debt or take care of that medical bill or something else that's been hanging over you. That is that long-term bill that pulls the money out of your budget. Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
So to be fair, even though I disagree with this plan, but to be fair, I'll give you some of what they claim to be the benefits of this. Okay?
I'm curious too.
So even with the wide variances in monthly payments, researchers found a significant increase in housing security across all three cohorts after 10 months of payments. Just 8% of participants who filled out the survey at enrollment reported living in a house or apartment they rented at the time. At the 10-month mark, that increased to 45%. So from 8% to 45% of the enrollees surveyed, including 43% of those receiving just $50 per month. Perhaps unsurprisingly, researchers saw substantial improvements in recipients' feelings of financial well-being.
Wow. Now that's interesting. And
it also improved their employment. Roughly 23% of recipients had full-time jobs at enrollment. At the 10-month mark, the total increased to 27%. So 4%.
That helps. The housing thing's big. And I know we got to get to a break, but I kind of want to explore that as well, because that is kind of a game changer as far as permanent housing. And the thing that I find interesting that I would love to compare and contrast is how and where they found the housing. My guess is it's outside of Section 8 and government programs. And I think that's important to the family, and I think it's important to the kid growing up, and I think it's a good lesson for us about what happens when we create government housing versus what might be able to happen if we would take that money in the Section 8 housing and instead apply it to properly qualified individuals and subsidize their housing cost that way.
Yeah, the key being properly qualified.
Exactly.
And then to what you just said, get it out of this poverty management system where people are getting like $350,000 a year managing these systems, and they're not actually improving poverty.
And you're giving the person that is struggling agency over their life, because they're allowed to make the choice about where they want to live. They don't have to go to the government project and live with that stigma. Your kid's not growing up going, oh, you're in the Section 8 housing. We all knew those kids growing up. We knew the kids that were growing up in the projects. We knew the kids that had the subsidized housing. It's not a secret. And that hurt the kids as well. But the more important thing here is you also can allow some market-based solutions rather than a government solution, because now these individuals that have the ability to go out and make the choices for housing for them, it's more market-based. They're choosing where they want to live. They're going to go close to their jobs, and they're going to make that investment, and that's better for the community. But it's got to be properly qualified. And for me, that person managing the Section 8 housing, they should instead be walking these people through financial literacy, and they should be checking in with them and their bills and everything else every couple of months. That should be the job, not managing the big giant property.
Drug testing?
People. If they have a history of drug abuse, absolutely. Addiction and addiction counseling absolutely has to be rolled in. If you have a history, I wouldn't assume drug use and drug abuse if it is not there. But if it is there, absolutely it has to be part of the solution, because I think if you're caught in the cycle of addiction, getting you out of it is much better for you, your family, and the society. Give you that step up while you're getting yourself out. And that's what Step Denver does. So absolutely, absolutely, if you have a history of addiction.
Give us a call. What do you think of this Denver universal basic income? $9.5 million just handed with no strings attached to the homeless. Good thing, bad thing? Are we just fueling addiction here? To Billy's point, does they need to be qualified in order to get this? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Jeff, the solution to homelessness is to do nothing. Universal basic income is communism. It is Democrats imposing communism in America, disguising it as altruism.
Now, that's interesting.
Families can take care of their own if they want. People can starve to death and die if they want. The only services that are appropriate are drug rehabilitation and psychological treatment, nothing more. 5,600.
Now, 5,600, the question I would have for you, and it's kind of a larger overarching question, is it's something that and it's not fair for me necessarily to bring this into the conversation, but Jeff and I speak about this all the time. And it's interesting given that we are starting to put 10 commandments now in Louisiana schools. Are we a Judeo-Christian country? Is this founded as a Judeo-Christian country? And if it is, if you agree that it is, then I believe that our Lord and Savior disagrees with you, 5,600. I believe that you are going exactly against. If you believe that we should have more religious, prayer in school, things like that, if you believe that is the way forward, then I want to see you have the courage of your convictions and realize that 5,600, that stance is 180 degrees away from what our Lord and Savior, if you have our shared faith, calls us to do. And that's a big issue.
I want to talk to you about Ultra Botanica and Ultra Cur. Look, there's plenty of curcumin products out there on the market. You probably heard them advertised. They all want you to pay to try, but not Ultra Cur. Ultra Cur is a patented non-prescription natural capsule that works fast, and they believe so much in their product, they're willing to give you a free 3-day trial. Look, I'm fighting back my workout soreness and thriving because of UltraCur. It's a great daily supplement that helps improve your wellness and helps you overcome pain. Experience UltraCur for free. Go to any Denver Metro natural grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial of UltraCur. UltraCur is fueled by a patented technology giving you the true edge to support your peak wellness, energy, and active lifestyle. Get curious, Denver. Head to the natural grocers and grab your free 3-day UltraCur trial with no strings attached. Are you wondering about the research? Well, you can get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. All right, Frank, you'll be up next. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in Berlin, I'm Trent Murray, and here are the top stories we're following. One of America's most well-known actors has passed away, aged 88. Donald Sutherland, whose career spanned hit performances in MASH, Animal House, and The Hunger Games, died Thursday, according to his talent agency. His son, actor Kiefer Sutherland, posted on social media his father, quote, was never daunted by a role, good, bad, or ugly. He loved what he did and did what he loved, and one can never ask for more than that. A life well lived. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s bid for the White House has experienced a setback after he failed to qualify for next week's presidential debate. Nick Harper has the story.
Debates bring big audiences. More than 73 million people tuned in to the first presidential debate in 2020. That number of viewers could have helped to boost RFK's campaign as he tries to steal away voters from Joe Biden and Donald Trump. However, he's failed to reach the 15% support threshold in 4 national polls, with just 3% of voters saying they'll support him in November's election. And he's only managed to get on the ballot in about 6 states, about a third of the required total.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Trent Murray in Berlin on Salem News Channel.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
All right, what we're talking about today on the Jeff and Bill Show, the Denver Basic Income Project. The city of Denver, along with some private donations, have spent $9.4 million just handing out cash to the homeless. Now they're very excited about some of the benefits, including they believe it has saved us 600,000.
Winning. Yes, I don't. I'm sorry. But,
what an investment! Here's $10 million. How much did I earn off of that? Well, you lost 10, but you gained 600.
Yeah.
Thank you for playing the government monopoly game.
It's like your kids coming back and saying, I spent $95 and I saved you $5. Like, what? What? You don't know how this works. That's not. No, stop it. That just doesn't help. It's just silly.
All right, let's go get Frank's thoughts. Denver, Frank, you've been patient. Good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Morning.
Sounds like charity without accountability.
Ooh,
that's exactly
insightful.
Right.
That's nice. I like that phrase.
Yeah, and Dave Ramsey, I loved listening to his show. It's gone from a financial show to a psych show. And
that's exactly right.
He made a mistake in his real estate early on by taking out recourse loans that some bank looked at him and said, who's this 23-year-old with $2 million worth of real estate loans? Let's call him and see what he's all about. And they did, and he couldn't stand the heat, and he had to go bankrupt. But he learned a lot from that, and he studied. He's got a smart financial mind, math mind, and he also applied biblical principles of the old, the son with the talents. And what have you done with this I've given you? And he asked some accountability from the people who are given these gifts. And I think that would be the key that I would see in this giving away of money, that you can have the money, but you have to do some learning, and then we have to follow up and see how accountable you are. In other words, it takes money to do anything in this world anymore, but giving these poor people just these amounts, different amounts, such as a first aid kit to take care of little minor scrapes and things like that, that with Band-Aids and antibiotic ointment, this, that, and the other, that would keep them out of the emergency room. But maybe some things, Billy, like you were talking about, testing for drugs and holding them accountable. They have to agree to try to work on these issues during this period of study. And I think that's going to result in much more return than 600,000 out of 10 mil. But the left doesn't seem to want to ask that of people. So that accountability issue is huge.
Now, Frank, why do you think they don't want to ask? I would agree with you that the left doesn't want to roll in that accountability, but why?
I think from my observation of the left, they have this penchant for wanting to be nice. They don't want anybody to think that they might be coming down on them. But that goes back to this interesting thing of Louisiana doing the 10 Commandments. Everybody says, oh, that's so oppressive with going, imposing your God on you. But if you go down the list of the 10 Commandments, I think most religions would agree with some of the tenets. Don't murder, don't steal, don't do harm unto your neighbor. All these things, we want to preserve the freedom of religion and speech. But if this society is ever going to get any increase in its GDP, we're going to have some increase in production. And in the poor and homeless, that means not spending money on them and draining our resources. It means teaching them and trying to lift them up, teaching them how to fish, not to just give them a fish. And then the society gradually spends less money on those kind of things, and the person is benefited.
Now, Frank, let's go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead. Frank, I was going to ask you this, and Billy, you too. If in today's society, somebody that's homeless, I've had family members born into poverty, challenges. Do you think they can make it? Can they get out of homelessness if they're born into it?
They can, but they have to have some input and training and insight into their own situation. And you talk about Dave Ramsey, that's what he does. He tries to analyze each problem individually and get at the mental flaw in judgment that caused this person to get into that problem. One of the big things is obviously buying expensive cars and having big payments. But there's a lot of other little things, and that's why I say it's turned into a psych show. There's so many psychological underlying problems that these people have not chosen to address. And he surrounded himself with good authors like John Deloney, a psychologist, and others who have come up and raised themselves up through their own change in their personal actions. So that's why.
Frank, great call. We're just out of time. We'll continue this conversation when we come back. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
You choose the news. The loser edition.
Yes, it is the news. Those stories that Jeff Blake seemed unworthy earlier this week.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
Loser! Let's go. Loser! You're a loser!
It's a losers club. Bunch of losers.
You're such a loser. You made me feel like a loser!
She's a loser.
You are such a loser.
Loser.
Yes, it's the loser edition of You Choose the News, the stories that were deemed not worth your attention by Jeff and Blake earlier this week. And as a reminder, we are proudly not sponsored by Roll 'Em Out Shelves. They are a wonderful mother-son team that will solve the clutter problems in your kitchen, your home, your bath, your garage, and they'll do a free in-home estimate if you visit them at rollemoutshelves.com. But they don't want to be associated with anything as stupid and silly as this. You choose the news. Alrighty, gentlemen, here are the stories that you didn't like earlier this week. Headline number 1, shoot for the stars. Headline number 2, treasonous recycling. Headline number 3, imaginary contest. And number 4, doing it for charity. Alrighty, Mr. Hunt, your choice, sir.
I'd like to see what they're doing it for charity
for. Doing it for charity. A pastor in Dallas has been arrested and is facing 35 years in prison for stealing 3 churches. Dude stole 3 churches. Yes, he did. First Christian Church of Lancaster, one of the churches sounded the alarm back in 2019, said that this wonderful pastor came into town, Whitney Foster. He's running basically a fake charity. He ingrains himself into the church community, and then he files fake deeds of sale, taking control of the property. He circumvents the information getting back to the church itself. He is wanted all over the country for doing this, and he stole 3 3 churches in Dallas. Yeah, that's
wow,
great.
that's next level, man.
I know. All righty, Blake Olson, your choice, sir. Shoot for the stars, treasonous recycling, or imaginary contest?
Oh, I'm not a big recycling fan, so let's go to that fraud.
Yeah, this is treasonous recycling. We are traveling all the way to Beijing for this one. A military history buff in China appears to have made an alarming discovery, and he's not going to prison for it. After picking up 4 discarded books for less than $1 at a neighborhood recycling station, he found out they were actually confidential military documents. He now is in possession of stuff that he could be accused of treason for. He promptly called the authorities and said, sorry about this. Yeah. He said, sorry, no harm, no foul. And in fact, the Chinese government has then lauded him and said, look, this is an example of the perfect kind of citizen here in China.
Oh, this was in China?
Yes, it's in China.
Oh, I missed that part.
Oh, yeah. So very important when you have the Chinese government documents to give them back. they don't like sharing. So, yeah.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Exactly. So luckily, he gets to keep all of his appendages.
Gets to keep his head.
Yes, I know. Yes. Alrighty, Jeff. Final choice for this morning: a shoot for the stars or imaginary contest?
Imaginary contest, please.
This is a completely imaginary contest brought to us by Mr. Mark Crowley, our video and tech wizard here behind the scenes. And right now online, you can visit it. They are soon going to be crowning Miss AI. Yes, Miss Artificial Intelligence is down to 10 finalists. You can see it on FanView. It is a subscription service where creators can make all kinds of AI content. Most of it's porn. Yes, most of it's porn. But still, it's AI content, but they've created a lot of AI women. They're having an AI beauty contest, and people are voting. And this is phenomenally stupid because it's not a real person. I mean, really, people. I'm sorry. This is a personal thing. If you're voting in the AI contest, go outside and touch grass. Please, just get out. All righty. That's the end of You Choose the News Loser Edition. Back to you, Mr. Hunt.
All right. When we come back, you'll never guess how much Portland's spending. You think Colorado's spending a lot on homeless? Dwarfed by the amount that Portland is spending. We'll get into that and more. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. bad. There's indigestion there and other issues. It's just not good. But when you finish, join us, YouTube, Rumble. Yeah, you can see us doing all the weird stuff behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, go to YouTube, X, and Rumble, 710KNUS. Good morning. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Friday, June 21st. TGIF. And we are covering a whole lot of news stories for you today. Spending on homelessness spikes to a shocking amount in Portland metro area. Yesterday, we were talking about the homeless spending here in Colorado is literally double what they said, because that's the world we live in when government runs things.
Wait, you mean Portland doesn't know what they're doing? Shocked. Notice on YouTube. Notice shocked faced. I'm very surprised that they have no idea what they're doing.
And you know what doesn't surprise me?
What?
The voters are like, let's continue to put these people in office.
I know. How high are you? Really? I mean, come on. Seriously.
It is Friday. We are covering a lot of these issues. In the previous hour, we talked about the Denver Universal Basic Income Project, which is $9.5 million of just cash. Just giving money to homeless people now, no strings attached, but they're very happy because they believe they've saved you about $600,000.
And that's government savings.
That is absolute government math right
Yes,
there.
it is.
Wonderful investment. Give us $10 million and we'll give you $600,000 back.
It's like they come out and they'll say, well, this program's going to cost $50 million. Well, actually, it cost $140 million, but we saved $3. Huh? Wait, that's not a savings. That's not savings. It's just still more than what we had at the. Things hurt.
So we'll be covering what Portland did, and then a very powerful text message just came in from 3627. I want to deal with this because we have the best listeners. This is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. You call any of those other radio stations, one, you're not going to get through because all they do is read news talking points put together by somebody in a New York newsroom.
Plus, they don't care what you have to say. They don't. That's why they don't engage with you. They don't care.
And then if they are not doing that, they're doing monologues. So this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. We do have an open line. We're going to get to Brian here in just a second, some of these text messages. But let's check in first on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 63 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 80s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the Rocky Mountain DEA just seized around 570,000 pills in 1 week, and they were all fake. The operation intercepted 3 shipments of pills in the state. The special agent in charge says this proves the Mexican drug cartels aren't slowing down production and distribution this summer. A Denver father faces a first-degree murder charge in connection with his 2-month-old baby's death last year. 33-year-old Tony Vigil and 30-year-old Jalen Vigil brought the infant to a hospital with what they said were chemical burns from a new shampoo, and the child later died. However, doctors found evidence that the baby had been scalded with hot water and had other injuries consistent with abuse, and both parents were arrested. The U.S. Supreme Court will issue more opinions today ahead of the end of the month recess. President Biden and former President Trump preparing for next week's presidential debate. Biden is training with advisors in Camp David, or maybe taking naps at Camp David. I'm not sure. While Trump is holding policy discussions with his allies and vice presidential hopefuls. The debate will be on CNN on June 27th. Trump is warming up for next week.
And now we have the worst border in the history of the world. We had a safe border. I had a remain in Mexico policy, catch and release in Mexico, not in the United States. Everything was so good. But the remain in Mexico was a big deal. Not easy to get, but it was a big deal. They were in Tijuana, hundreds of thousands of people. They had to be approved to come into our country. And now you look at what's happened. We've been overrun. It's an invasion of our country by people. Many people come out of jails and prisons. They come out of mental institutions, insane asylums, and we have terrorists coming into our country at a level that we've never seen before.
Overseas, the Hezbollah terrorist group is ramping up attacks against Israel. The Lebanon-based group is targeting civilian infrastructure inside Israel, and the U.S. is concerned the conflict is escalating. In New York, AG Alvin Bragg has dropped all criminal charges against the Hamas supporters who raised hell at Columbia last month. Dr. Sheila Nazarian.
The message to the protesters is what you did was fine. It's just like your children. If you don't hold them accountable and you don't set boundaries, they keep pushing further and further to see what they can get away with. That's number one. Number two is it's almost like a message to everyone else that Columbia wants this almost to be the behavior on campus.
Nazarian was on Fox News Channel last night. The 19-year-old Aurora woman who went missing while driving home from Greeley about a week ago has been found dead. The body of Leslie Vincente was found inside a car submerged in a Weld County gravel quarry. Officials haven't said how she or the car ended up in the water, and an investigation has been launched to figure out what happened. A 15-year-old suspect is in custody following that shooting that injured two boys in Aurora on Wednesday. It happened near a playground outside an apartment complex and left two boys, 12 and 14 years old, with non-life-threatening injuries. The suspect faces charges of possession of a weapon by a juvenile, possession of a dangerous or illegal weapon, and obstructing a peace officer.
That's three. And that's a win for LA.
They are now 47-30. The Rockies dropped to 26-49.
Rockies lose to the Dodgers in front of Jeff Hunt and his family 5-3 on Thursday. And tonight, the Nationals at Coors Field. 57 in Castle Rock, 59 in Arvada, and 62 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It is Friday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. We'll stay in the mid to upper 80s today, partly cloudy to cloudy. Scattered afternoon and evening showers and thunderstorms will be possible, a few of which could be strong. Low temperatures tonight will be in the upper 50s to near 60s. Sunny and warm for the weekend. Near 90 Saturday, low 90 Sunday. Only isolated thunderstorms this weekend. Staying very warm into Monday and Tuesday. Cooler thunderstorms Wednesday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Yesterday we detailed, and actually this was broken by Channel 9, the city of Denver not spending $60 million on homelessness in the city, but an actual whopping $155 million. That's how much the city of Denver is spending in 18 months on homelessness, and it's not really improving anything. Only about 4.5% have gotten out of these city-run hotels, shelters, and kind of freed themselves from government subsistence in order to provide for their housing. But that pales in comparison to what the three biggest Oregon counties spent combating homelessness in 2023. All right, Denver, $155 million. How about $500 million in Portland? Local governments and nonprofits in the Portland area spent more than $500 million fighting homelessness last year, a 70% increase from the year before. The number itself was shocking, said John Tepagonia, a senior policy advisor at Echo Northwest, which crunched the numbers. Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties, which make up Oregon's Portland metro area, spent $531 million on homelessness interventions in fiscal year 2023. The huge increase was driven in part by nearly, guess what, $90 million in federal pandemic relief funds, as well as regional homeless tax approved by voters in 2020. So voters, hardworking voters in the City of Portland brought this upon themselves in some part, and it's part of your tax dollars. $90 million in federal pandemic relief funds. Now, our country is $34 trillion in debt. Hearing that $90 million went to address homelessness in Portland, how does that make you feel? They said that revenue flows into the system are dynamic and changing constantly. About 7,500 people in the Tri-County area are living in emergency shelters. So just think about the number, okay? We're at about 1,200 in the city of Denver. They're at 7,500. But the report also includes more than 13,000 individuals who have recently exited homelessness and have now received rental support. So they're paying for their rent, as well as more than 81,000 people considered to be at the risk of homelessness due to low incomes and high housing costs. So they're driving up all the housing costs, and now they're paying people that may be at risk of becoming homeless in addition as well. When you put that all together, it's 100,000 people. So when I read this was a Fox News article. I'm like, at this point, this is just socialism. 100,000 people. We're spending $500 million. We're paying for some that are in homeless, but we're also paying nearly 81,000 people to make sure they don't become homeless.
Yeah.
We're just spreading all the wealth around, baby.
Yeah, again, I'm curious about the qualifications and getting people and transitioning them out of homelessness. That's kind of the thing that I've got. And the thing for me is it's Portland's throwing money at them. And I've got a thing we talked about here from KMPH in LA, where they are just building the homeless some, like houses and an entire apartment complex. Here's the report from KMPH. Well, if it will play. Okay. Looks like my computer doesn't want to play crap.
Coming to you live from KPMH.
That's awkward.
We have...
Well, that was awkward after that setup. Technology is great. This is definitely... You sure it's not Monday? Is this Friday? Well, I will have to fix that and figure out what the heck's going on behind the scenes. But basically, as you know, they're building an entire tower for homeless, and they're only going to house a couple of hundred, and each unit costs between $600,000 to $800,000 just to build.
Yep.
And it's build. Here's the issue I've got. Why new construction? Again, why are we retrofitting old construction?
And they've got gyms and all this other stuff and little art rooms.
I know. And it's, again, but again, who are the qualifiers? If we talk about the single parent, if we talk about like the text that we have, the homeless vet that is struggling just based on the fact that losing the job, those are people that I think you can get into the apartment complex. But those people that are more interested in just feeding the addiction, and those people, you can go down to Civic Center Park today. You can go down through 16th Street Mall. Yep. You can see those people. You can go to 225 and Parker.
I was going to say on the way into work this morning, the walking zombie fentanyl.
Exactly. Tell that story. That's scary. And that is a homeless addiction issue that directly feeds into this idea. And handing that person $50 extra a month isn't going to fix it.
I wish it was just $50 a month. I mean, so on the way into work today, you had the zombie fentanyl. They're literally standing there with their heads down, not moving, and you're like, what is going on? Saw that on the way to work today. So look, despite the surge in spending on services in Portland, $500 million. You ready for this? Are you sitting down? Are you going to be shocked? Here's the next line from Fox. Homelessness in Multnomah County has continued to grow.
What? So how much money? And it continues to...
I can't. $500 million.
And they got more.
You know why?
Why?
The article gets into it.
Yeah, dude, tell them.
Because of all the great services they provide.
That's
it's
weird.
Like moths to a flame.
That's weird. And the other part is, I understand the moths to the flame, but more the idea of when you're handing them, and again, it is our caller earlier this morning, Frank, a great phrase, charity without accountability.
Yes.
And I think that is the core kernel of the issue, that in this homeless program, I'm assuming based on the results, it's charity without accountability. What did we see when we talked about Denver yesterday, when they're trying to get the migrants into the work program? They have a couple of hundred. We've got tens of thousands of migrants that have come in. And the promise is we need to get them into the society, because look at the boom they will provide for Denver, because they'll take these jobs, they'll do these jobs, they'll spend the money in the community, and everything's going to be great. And we're going to raise the tax base, and they're going to become productive members of society. And we're not going to have to take taxpayer money and give them all the free stuff anymore. And oddly, when they're getting all the free stuff without accountability, none of them show up to do the work. None of them show up for the job training. But why would they? Why should they?
And in Portland, Billy, to your point, they have the freaking drug decriminalization experiment.
Yeah. So
there's not any accountability. It's just cash. And in LA, it's homes.
Yep. And think about the cycle that they create in Portland when they're spending that money on the homeless, while also allowing them to put whatever they can into their body at the same time. You're surprised that it reinforced the behavior? That's the issue. Is, again, we talk about it. You have 4 kids. I have 4 kids. You talk about that idea of behavior reinforcement and behavior correction. This lack of accountability, you don't expect them to change.
Yeah.
If your kids have no consequences for not loading the dishwasher, they're not going to load the dishwasher. If your kids have no consequences for not cleaning their room, they're not going to clean their room. And that's why it's always a shock to some kids when they're in school and they're like, wait, you mean because I didn't turn in the assignments, I'm not going to pass this class? Yes, that's accountability. Yes, that's the problem. What did you think was going to happen by not turning in the homework?
Right.
What did you think was going to happen?
And Jacqueline with the $1 million text message question. I'm curious as to who ends up with all the money and where does it go?
That's a good question.
Shockingly, Fox covers this. They are in some hot water, especially in California, where they spent $24 billion to tackle homelessness over the last 5 years, but failed to consistently track how the money was used or whether it improved outcomes, according to a state audit published in April.
Weird. So they didn't audit the
grift,
outcome.
man. This is whether it's Ukraine or homelessness in Denver or Portland or California. I need to be on the money train in another capacity where nobody tracks where the money goes.
Now, so they weren't actually measuring the efficacy of the program.
No, they're government, man.
God, this hurts. This hurts my head because, and again, but you're absolutely right, because it only in the government would you set up a program that would cost hundreds of millions of dollars and not be concerned about whether or not it works. Only in the government. And you talk about this a lot, Jeff, and I give you a lot of credit for it, because they're not spending their money. They're spending your money. And they can always come and get more of your money. And Exhibit A, Tabor. The Dems want to hold a Tabor so bad. They want that money because they feel they're entitled to it. They don't feel that Tabor's restrictions on how much extra money they can spend and how much they can take out of your pocket and my pocket matters. It's all their money. It's not yours. They just need to find out a way to get more.
And Billy, it is that. It's the fact that it's our tax dollars that they're using. It's totally inefficient. There's no accountability. But then to this point right here, and we get the calls in a second, y'all have been very patient. We got full phone lines. 3627, man. This is, would you put yourself in that guy's position?
Yeah.
Let me read this text message.
Please do.
When you put yourself in this guy's position and just listen to what he is saying versus what you just heard. 500 million in Portland. What was it? 2.4 billion in California.
Yeah.
Then listen to this guy. Good morning, gentlemen. Currently a homeless veteran. Lost my job for woke progressive reasons. That started a domino downfall. At any rate, I've been looking for assistance and a non-shelter housing solution. I've called, written, emailed many possible posted housing assistance organizations in Denver and the surrounding counties. Unfortunately and disappointingly, no joy. No replies, no return messages, no returned calls, basically just no answer. I'm living in my car while looking for employment. It is difficult to hear about all this assistance and funding availability when I'm circling the drain. Man, that line right there. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
My biggest crime is being broke. Also difficult to hear and see all the assistance for non-tax paying illegal immigrants. 3627, and Billy, to your point, you're going to try to connect them with some good folks, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I've reached out to a couple of people behind the scenes, and there are some things I've just asked him personally through the text message on some qualifiers, because I need to know what direction. And I'm not saying that we have a solution, but it opens my heart. The thing that hurts me is that his biggest crime is being broke. That hurts.
Yeah.
It's not anything else.
Right.
And that's really, really difficult. And I can't imagine the psychological impact it has on you. The idea that you're going out there and you're trying to find a job, but you live in the car. What address do you put down on that job application? When you're talking and when you get into that interview process, what does that mean? And think about it. And it's not fair, but that employer sitting there, even though this person's a homeless vet and could be the most reliable and best possible worker they're going to hire, sitting in that other side of the desk, you look at it and you've got one candidate that has a home and one candidate that's in their car. It's not fair, but who do you believe is going to be the more reliable employee?
Right.
And it's just psychological. And it's not fair, because that vet could be 10 times the employee of the other person that already has a home.
Billy, I'm not convinced that the $500 million that we're spending and the $2.4 billion in California and the $155 million in Denver is being wasted by homeless people. And let me tell you why.
Ooh, you got me there. Okay, I'm curious.
Because I don't see them freaking driving Lambos, man. You got this amount of money being spent. Here's what ticks me off. I think it goes to this homeless industrial complex.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, what was it? The Colorado Coalition homeless person makes $350,000 a year. The director of that.
I got a solution to that in a sec, but keep going.
That's where the money is. That's where the money's going.
Got an idea.
Yeah.
I think that maybe this is just an idea. That maybe we take the director of something like the Colorado Coalition of the Homeless and the person that's the newcomer thingy person that's supposed to welcome all the immigrants. Just an idea. I'm just spitballing here because, sometimes I'm an idea guy. I'm thinking that we lower their salary by 50%. We still allow them to make that money. However, they have to supplement it. And this is how they supplement it. They have to supplement it. And they can do this as often as they want, as long as they can get their job done, by going down on the street corners and begging, just like the homeless do. How much can you make? We'll allow you. And guess what? And how much you take it tax-free. Take it tax-free. But you got to be there, and you got to show us what you're doing, and you got to ask me and everybody else walking by about how you're doing on this homeless problem, and we can judge your salary right there based on the dollars that we have in our pocket. Heck, get those credit card scanners. You get a little square on your phone. We can do credit cards. We can do it.
Earn that down there.
Earn it. And also get out on the streets and see what the people are actually dealing with, rather than getting your six-figure salary.
Here. Let's go to Brian in Colorado. Brian, you're on the Jeff and Bill show. You've been very patient.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. My wife went to a work thing in Portland a couple years ago, about a year and a half ago, and they're excited to go and see Portland. And the Uber drivers, a retired gentleman, lived there for 20 years, and they're like, "Where should we go tonight to eat?" And he goes, "In your hotel." He said, "You're absolutely crazy if you ladies think you're going to go downtown in Portland at night. It is a mess. I don't even drive down there. The homeless situation and violent situation." So he turns off he does not drive for Uber after 6 o'clock. He said there's no way. So that's one story.
Now,
and
Brian, I want to
homeless,
stop you there just for a sec, only because that shocks me. And this is anecdotal, but it would be probably 16 years ago, I was in Portland for a radio conference. A group of people had brought out for the stations, and we were there for a few days. And one of the things that I enjoyed the most was getting up very, very early in the morning or late at night after everything wrapped up and just going and walking the streets, going and walking around downtown, because I like that. It's how I kind of grew up, right near Denver downtown. It feeds part of me. And it was a beautiful city. Smells funny like moss, but beautiful city. The fact that you're telling me that was your wife's experience shocks me, scares me, and also makes me sad. It's a great example of how bad that city has gone in really little more than a decade. Thanks. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, you're absolutely right. And then 25 years ago, I went to San Francisco with my wife before we got married. And beautiful city, clean. We're at the wharf. We're doing this. We're doing that. Total disaster now.
Yeah.
And Denver's headed that way. 20 years ago, when I was in Denver, taking my friends from college there downtown, they were from different states going, well, Denver's so clean. Denver's so nice. This is 20 years ago. Now it's a dump. I don't go to Denver to save my life. I don't even drive through Denver if I can avoid it. But this is all part of the left's plan. They number one, they create the problem so that they can solve it. That's Democrats. Let's create this big problem so we can solve it. And then the other one is dependency. The more people they have dependent, the more they can control people. So this is just the welfare system to homeless people.
Now, Brian,
and it's all about the left controlling people. These are solvable issues. The border is getting voters that are dependent, and this homeless situation is just getting people dependent.
Brian,
so
I like that.
we can solve these problems.
I like what you're saying, man, because I disagree with you on the fact that they create it, but we can put that aside because I think where you're correct is lack of solutions. Because in this conversation we're going to have, whether or not the Democrats do or do not create it is somewhat, where I'm going with the conversation is somewhat irrelevant. Although, you can have your opinion and I can be completely wrong on this one. But I think you're 110% right about the fact that regardless of the causation, they don't want the solution because it does create the cycle of dependency. And I think you're very smart on that one, because as long as the problem exists, the jobs exist, the programs exist, and the most important thing is the virtue signaling exists. That we can come out and say, look, we care more than you do because we're doing this. I would be certain that a lot of the money that was spent in Portland and everything else with the drugs and the homelessness started with the idea of we have to care. Now, Brian, I'm going to give you the Jeff and Bill Show magic wand this morning. You are allowed for the next couple of minutes to try and solve the homeless problem in Denver. What are the first two things you would do?
I would create not a shelter, but like a homeless hotel way out in the middle of nowhere, kind of where DIA is. And one is, you have a step program. You have to get clean to stay there, and we have work programs for them. But you move them out of the city where they're getting handouts from people and affecting people's way of life. And then you're going to have people that want this system, and you're going to have people that are going to thrive in this, and you're going to have people that don't. So, and I'm talking with mental health care. I'm talking with health care. I'm talking with all this stuff, job work programs. There's a lot of things that people can be doing construction wise. And then there's just some that aren't going to do it, and you're going to have a homeless jail somewhere.
Wow.
But move them out to the east and not affect these urban centers and these suburbs, because it's not fair to us. I'm being affected in Arvada by this being pushed out into my neighborhood now. Wheat Ridge is being affected by homelessness. So again, it's not out of sight, out of mind. It's just out of affecting everybody. And you have a hotel, you have a prison, and you have work systems. Some people are just not going to want to do anything.
Now, Brian, what I like
give
about
them a choice.
What I like about there is, and it's counterintuitive, but I think you've hit on something that is very intelligent, is removing them out of the area that provides the support and the addiction. Now, I know that our friends at Step Denver, they keep their offices downtown because that's how they fish. Because if they're not downtown, people aren't going to walk through the door. If they're not downtown, people aren't going to see the work. However, in Brian's program, I think you've got something very intelligent about moving them out of the population centers, not to hide them, but to remove the instances of temptation. You're not tempted to do the crime. You're not tempted to hang out with your friends that are doing the drugs. Also, if you do have that sort of a community, it's also easier to monitor the drug dealers coming in. And you can have addiction services. You can have all of that. You have job services there in that community. That makes a hell of a lot of sense, my friend. I appreciate the phone call, man. I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks. That was good. That was good.
Brian's line will be open. Thank you for the call. 303-696-1971. We'll get to Fred and Marty next. I want to talk to you about Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Look, your home is a significant asset, and choosing the right team to help you sell it can be the difference in thousands of dollars in your pocket. I highly recommend Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team, the realtors I trust, for a few reasons. One, Gay Ribble provides exceptional service and valuable advice, and they employ a unique system that maximizes the money you can get for your home, right? So if you're selling your home, incredibly stressful, you want to work with a delightful professional person. That's Gay Ribble. Number two, she shares our values. She believes in the values of this radio station, and she gives back to the community. She supports orphans in the state of Colorado because she was an orphan herself, and she wants those kids to be able to find their forever home. So delightful person, strong values. Number three, she is a pro. Look, we all got friends and family members that are real estate agents, and they want our business. But at the end of the day, this is about maximizing the money you can get. This is a business deal to benefit your family. Gay Ribble gets her clients an average of $30,000 more. Could you use an extra $30,000? That's precisely why you need Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Their exclusive database is filled with pre-screened buyers ready to make a purchase. Take the stress and hassle out of selling your home while getting the best prices. They have over 14,700 pre-approved buyers ready to make a purchase right now. They sell their homes on average 1.5 times faster, and they get $30,000 more on average. Why wouldn't you use her? Give Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team a call today at 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's Gaye hasthebuyers.com. We'll continue this conversation about the spending that Denver is not only putting into homelessness, but they're actually handing out $9.5 million worth of cash. No strings attached now to the homeless. The city of Portland, spending $500 million. The state of California, $24 billion over 5 years to address homelessness, and they have not improved outcomes. It's all failing. What are your ideas? Give us a call. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
I was just going to let this run, brother.
Good. Such a good song.
This is perfect.
How do you not smile? Listen to this. How do you not start smiling? How does this just not set up your day?
It's Friday. It's June.
Yeah.
It's Colorado. It's the perfect song, brother.
It is. It really is. And you can watch us on YouTube, Rumble, and the Twitters and stuff. Because sometimes I dance. It's so hard for me not to. I've been told that I shouldn't, but it is so hard. I'm sorry. That is just something I do with. I will be cooking and I'll have music in the background and I will dance in the kitchen. I got no shame. I have no shame at all, and my kids hate it.
I will pay good money to Billy Thorpe's kids to please video that and send it to me. So
Dude,
$50
I'll
for
you.
Speaking of that, yes, Billy mentioned we are on X, YouTube, and Rumble. All you got to do is type in 710KNUS and you can turn your radio listening experience into a video streaming experience. So please do that and check us out there as well. Lots of phone calls and text messages on today's show.
Yeah, and just a reminder,
about this
listeners,
issue.
when you call, you got to be on topic. Sorry. I had an off-air discussion with a gentleman that was very angry that he couldn't tell us what he wanted to talk about and that we had to do it exactly what he wanted.
Yes.
Yeah, so I suggested
Keep
that
the conversation focused.
Yeah, he used some very colorful metaphors directed at me. And I just suggested that, hey, call Hugh and Dennis Prager today, off topic, and see how quickly you put on the air. I'm just saying, I'm not the a-hole here.
We like to keep people focused.
We have to.
Speaking of remaining on topic, we had a caller on the previous segment that just said, hey, let's ship the homeless out east. So we don't have to deal with all the problems because they're enabled in the city and all that stuff. Someone from out east would like to speak into that. Excuse me, caller. This is from 1780. People live out by DAA. Plus, we have farming out here, and we don't want them out here either. You're just suggesting to move to a location if the problem. So here's what we're talking about. City of Denver claimed to have spent about 50-60 million on homelessness. 9 News, thanks to good reporting, and when they do good reporting, we'll honor them for it. They found out that it's about $155 million that they've spent on homelessness in the last 18 months.
Surprise.
So if you think that's bad, let's take a journey on over to Portland, where they've spent $500 million on homeless and have no improvement in their services, and people are still homeless up there. And then let's take a journey down the coast to California, where over the last 5 years, they've spent $24 billion on the homeless, and they can't measure any improvement either. So where do we go from here? Let's take some calls. Fred Longmont, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning. It's interesting. I'm listening to you guys talk about what Denver's doing and all this money they're throwing at the homeless. Let me show you a parallel. I've got 11 guys on my roof right now replacing it. You know where they're from?
Probably not this country.
They're
Central
from
America.
Honduras.
Yeah.
Now, we've got 11 guys who can come here from another country, come to work. They were here at 6:30 in the morning, and yet Denver cannot get these people a job. Let me tell you what I think again about this statistics that these guys are running. First of all, do you think they're going to say their program's a failure?
Never. And I have learned that by being on lots of boards. See, people don't put me on boards because I sit there and actually look at the numbers and go, they're not adding up.
You mean you want to get things done? That's silly.
I don't buy into the BS that everything's rainbows and sunshine.
Yeah,
which is what they like to present before the government.
Now, Fred, I think you're right about them not solving the problem. Do you think that's why places like Portland don't do accountability studies afterwards as far as looking at the efficacy? They don't want to know the numbers of who they bring out of their program because that's not the point of the program.
Well, let me give you a quote that might answer your question if I could.
Please.
It comes from Russell Brand, a British comedian, and he said, quote, "People who say the system works, work for the system."
Gosh, that's a good quote. That's what we've been talking about because, look, $24 billion, $500 million in Portland, $155 million in Denver. The homeless are not driving around in Lambos.
No.
They don't got suites at the Rockies game.
You know what else they don't have? Homes.
They don't even have homes.
No,
so
they're not
this is why I'm not like fully opposed to the Denver basic income plan, because my gosh, if you're going to spend money on homeless, I sure would appreciate it if it got to the homeless, because it's not. It's going to these stupid poverty industrial complex people that make $350,000 a year and are never held accountable to get anybody out of homelessness. Sorry.
Well, and here's another problem, and this is really the basic problem. You've heard of the bird feeder effect?
Yeah. You put up the bird feeder, you get birds, but you're also going to get squirrels and everything else.
That's right. And every time they throw out another one of these programs, all they do is encourage more people to come and take advantage of it and not to have to do anything. Now, you asked the question, what would you do about it? I think the guy before me that called, his suggestion, put them out on the plains. There may be some viability to that. And I'll tell you how hardcore I am. My answer is do nothing.
Really?
Force them to have to do something for themselves. When I look back at the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl back in the 30s, those people didn't stand around and wait for the government to do something for them. They found ways to go out and try to solve their own problems. And that's the problem. We sit out there and we hand feed these people from the minute they're born anymore. And my attitude is, if you can't do it for yourself, or you're not going to do it for yourself, I'm not going to help you. Now, if you're going to I'll give you the shirt off my back when I see that you're making an honest and sincere and consistent effort.
Well, Frank, the issue, I think there were some job works programs, construction programs and things post depression that did exactly that the government did step in, and some of them were phenomenally effective. The question I have for you is this, okay? Let's talk about that homeless person or that illegal immigrant that is in your community. And if there aren't any support services for them, what do you think is going to be the easiest path for them to provide for themselves?
Well, they're going to be criminals.
Yeah. So do you think that, but hang on, and what I'm asking is, do you think your tough love approach ends up solving the problem or creating more criminals?
Well, there is no simple answer to this question, but I'll give you the one that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Let's start with the illegal aliens. If you don't give them anything, they're going to turn around and eventually say either they're going to be criminals or they're just going to go back home. Now, I just say, let's try that. We've tried all these other giveaway programs. Why don't we try something? You were talking earlier about when you give people, the kids stuff, this and that. If you don't teach them how to do stuff for themselves, they don't have an appreciation. Well, I think these people need to learn an appreciation for work. I grew up, had to work. I have everything I worked for. Now, I'm not saying that I'm perfect either, but I just think we need to try other programs. And I'll go back to my basic quote. People who say the system works, work for the system. As long as you're going to give people like Parvinsky, that's the guy that you're talking about, $350,000 a year, you're going to reward them for not solving a problem. Where do you go from there? So I just say, let's try doing nothing.
Yeah. That's a hard one because
I don't mind if charities step in, like Step Denver, the other ones.
But,
it's
but
just,
for Frank, that wouldn't be okay, because we should do nothing for them, because charities shouldn't do anything, because
Well,
even that charity money would be wrong, right, Frank?
Billy, please allow me to finish if you would. I think Jeff hit on it. There are a lot of private organizations. They can go out and raise money. They can do all these things to have the funds available. They can then help, but it doesn't make the taxpayer have to pay for it. I say let's start with charities. There are a lot of wonderful charities out there that want to do things, but I just think throwing money at people is the bird feeder effect, and I'm just totally opposed to it.
I can understand that, Frank, but let me tell you this. You said there are a lot of wonderful charities out there that are doing things. Why haven't the charities then solved it, if that's the solution?
Well, Billy, you always want a simple answer to a complex question. The charities,
No, I don't.
I know there are a lot of charities out there, but as long as we don't give them the effort, you got the government supporting these people. The charities sit back, they don't have the resources, because the money, the resource is my tax dollar. But I would give to a charity that I thought was helping people. But as long as I'm giving to the government, I haven't got money to give to charity.
Fred, so what you run into in this particular case with homeless and those and getting people out is that, like, let's use Step Denver, for example. Step Denver is really successful.
Yeah, but not 100%. Yeah.
if the person wants to go through the process of going with Step Denver. And I think with the government, you have the system set up where we're now providing housing, we're providing pretty much everything they need not to actually have to get out of it. Were you able to pull up the audio on, do you want to try that again?
I haven't, the short one doesn't work. The long one will work, but the short one doesn't. And I don't want to run a 3-minute bit. So,
the city of Los Angeles has built towers for the homeless, and each one of the units they're building costs $600,000 to $800,000 to build. It comes with a gym, it comes with an art room, it comes with a reading room. I mean, it's a nicer apartment setting than this is not Project Section 8 housing or whatever it's called. They're building nice stuff for people, and so this is why you're not getting people out of it. When I think you're creating a culture of dependency. And the government continues to do that. But if you had charities, and the only option you had were charities that require you to clean yourself up in order to get their services, like you can't go into Denver Rescue Mission stoned. You can't go into Catholic Charities stoned. If you want to be a part of Step Denver, you got to be sober. We're going to check you every time you come in. And there are only two options. You're either out on the streets or you're going through these charities. I think you'd see better success results than what the government's doing.
I'm not certain about that one. And this is what I want to know, Frank, Jeff. Do you think that those homeless, those addicted, and even some of those illegal immigrants want that program?
Nope.
I think that's the problem. When we say, well, we'll let the charities fix it. If the person,
they're not going to fix it all. They're not going to fix it all.
They can't, and nor have they. And I think that's the problem. And I think that's the issue with Frank's tough love approach is the path of easiest resistance when you cut off that support service is crime. And it even goes back to Les Miserables. You get Jean Valjean, who's in a point, and again, it's a story, but it is an analogy. You get a point where he is not a dishonest man, but he is in a point in his life when the only choice he feels he has in front of him to feed his sister and his sister's baby is theft. And that's what I think Frank's solution creates, is it feeds crime rather than stopping it.
Fred, I'll give you the last word. We're almost out of time here.
Well, Billy, you always seem to have the negative answer. My comment is, let's try it. It's about time. Peter Boyles often says the same thing, tough love, and I agree with him.
Yeah.
That's
Fred,
fair.
I really appreciate the call.
Thanks for the
Fred
call.
from Longmont. His phone will be open 303-696-1971. We'll continue this conversation. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's try to squeeze Marty in. Marty, Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Hey, guys, good stuff. Real quick. Homeless people, it's too expensive for them to live in Manhattan, L.A., Denver. So there has to be a plan to get them moved out. They have no chance of starting over their life in cities that expensive. But I think the bigger issue in asking, I think it's naive to suggest that Democrats are doing all this because they're so kind of people. That is not what we see happening in real time. These are not the kindest people doing this. And so you then ask, who are the homeless people voting for? They're voting in mail-in fashion. For example, Billy, here's a good one for you.
Marty, we're just out of time. I appreciate the call. We'll continue this. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
on a Friday, June 21st, TGIF, and welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and crazy. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So get another cup of coffee brew in Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Yeah. Coming up just after the news. Go ahead, Bill.
No, I just want to say, sorry, Marty, I didn't mean to cut you off there. We're going to try to hold you over the top, but you had other stuff to do. So, yeah, but I appreciate the phone call. And,
Marty, you can call back.
Yeah, and also, great text messages. Wow. again, appreciate each and every one of you reaching out to us through text. Some great ideas and great discussions that we're having behind the scenes on some stuff. So thanks a lot. It's really nice to see you guys and the depth of thought and consideration and having conversation with the person. It's like, no, don't bring them out towards the airport. And I'm kind of discussing what that looks like and why and what their thoughts are. So yeah, appreciate the engagement and watch us on the YouTubes and the Rumbles because okay, I don't know why you do that, but you can see what we're doing. It's and sometimes we dance.
It's because you're an old school radio guy, and I'm a cool young YouTube streamer, dude.
You're so much cooler than I am.
By the way, I was thinking of streaming Tuesday night with all the election results coming through.
Oh, that's a nice idea. I will not be doing that. I'll be sitting in a bar, not drinking. Right. That's my Tuesday nights, which again, 20-year-old me would be somewhat excited and also very disappointed in the direction my life went, but that's okay.
Speaking of that, we're going to have a candidate on in the 9 o'clock hour, Stephen Varela. He's a candidate for Congressional District 3. That's the western slope of Colorado, running in the Republican primary there. Former Democrat. We'll be talking to him, but I'm interested to see how it turns out. I've been asked to endorse a lot. I'm not endorsing. I got too many friends in all this.
That's weird.
Who's going to win in Congressional District 4? All that.
It's weird.
No one asked you to endorse?
No, that's a shock, isn't it?
Billy endorsement?
That's called the kiss of death. In fact, the only people that have asked me to endorse are people that have asked me to endorse their opponent. And I've been offered some money. I'm just, George Brockman. I'm just saying that, saying, can you endorse my opponent to really help? So yeah, but I will do that for the right price. I'm just saying I can be bought.
That is funny. When we come back from the news in just a second, I want to dive into this New York Magazine article that they've got some fire words for you conservative women. Listen to this. You are a series of contradictions. The Republican women seeking to steer the party into the future are finding themselves in constrictive binds between upholding a conservative white patriarchy that has outlawed abortion and asserting their value as women.
Ooh.
Between projecting traditional notions of compliant, cheerful femininity and channeling the testosterone-driven rage of the conservative infotainment complex. And above all, how dare you? Between trying to build an independent political identity and slavishly following Donald Trump. That devotion has come at the cost of alienating suburban white women. By the way, a suburban white woman wrote this article, and she's got a lot of anger towards you conservative women. What happened to you? What happened to the pearls? What happened, Barbara Bush? Sit down and be in your place. How dare you hold guns and go to Trump rallies and believe you're pro-life? You're sacrificing women on the altar of political success. This article ticked off a lot of people, including the ladies at Fox, calling it sexist. We'll get into this and more, but let's check in on the news with Blake Coulter. Good morning, Blake.
Oh, man, I can't wait to listen to that one. That's going to be a good one. 65 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 80s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story still awaiting the U.S. Supreme Court. They'll issue more opinions today ahead of the end of the month recess. Arvada police asking for the public's help in the search for 3 missing children, 13-year-old Infinity, 10-year-old Craig, and 7-year-old Damien were last seen at Terrace Park around 1 o'clock Thursday afternoon. Police say these 3 kids are not familiar with Arvada and they may have wandered off. Photos of the children have been released to the public, and anyone who has any information on their whereabouts should contact the Arvada Police Department. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston is in Paris to speak at the International Conference on Homelessness. He'll talk about his all-in mile-high model, which he says has helped get more than 16,000 people off the streets and into transitional housing within less than a year. He'll also discuss how his approach got 500 people into permanent housing. Joe Biden and Donald Trump gearing up for next week's presidential debate. The debate hosted by CNN will take place in Atlanta on June 27th with no studio audience. Trump has been holding policy discussions with his vice presidential hopefuls Biden has been preparing with his advisors in Camp David. VP candidate Doug Burgum is fired up about what he sees from Trump.
Whether it's the fentanyl that's pouring into our country, whether it's migrant crime that's occurring, whether it's inflation, whether it's high interest rates, these aren't partisan issues. These are affecting everybody in America who's trying to work and put food on the table, gas in their car. He's talking to real Americans about the issues that matter the most to them. I think that's fantastic debate prep.
Burgum on Fox News Channel last night. The Hezbollah terrorists gearing up for more attacks against Israel. The terrorists from Lebanon are targeting civilian infrastructure inside Israel, and the U.S. is concerned. In New York, AG Alvin Bragg, he's dropped all criminal charges against the Hamas supporters who raised havoc and broke hundreds of laws at Columbia last month. Rabbi Chaim Mentz.
We are now looking at what's going on in the 1930s in Germany. Jewish people had absolutely nothing, nobody protecting them. It was the government saying, your windows are being destroyed, you're getting a swastika, it's okay. We Jewish people are looking in New York, Los Angeles, we're looking all over. Where's the government protecting us? Why isn't anybody coming to us and saying, well, where are the people protesting along with us?
Amen. More emergency workers across Colorado are answering the call for help from New Mexico. Volunteers with the Pikes Peak area Red Cross are the latest deploying today after 2 wildfires destroyed hundreds of homes. Several crews from the state are already on the front lines now, and after 3 wildfires here are nearly 100% contained. The 19-year-old Aurora woman who went missing while driving home from Greeley about a week ago has been found dead. The body of Leslie Vicente was found inside a car submerged in a Weld County gravel quarry. Officials haven't said how she or the car ended up in the water, and an investigation has been launched to figure out what happened. Well, it's official. The gray wolves, reintroduced into Colorado last year, are reproducing. CPW confirms
getting the love on.
Yep, wolf pup was sighted in Grand County on Tuesday. You know, the nightlife in Grand County is pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Between stealing some calves and all that other stuff, you know.
Yeah, that's
Let
right.
me show you how many calves I can get for you.
Some big guys, some bad boys out there.
And that's a win for LA.
They are now 47-30. The Rockies dropped to 26-49.
Rockies lose to the Dodgers 5-3 on Thursday. Tonight, the Nationals at Coors. The Oilers try to force a Game 7 tonight in the Stanley Cup Finals against the Panthers. 61 in Lone Tree, 62 in Lakewood, 65 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. TGIF. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 7-10 5-day forecast. We'll stay in the mid to upper 80s today, partly cloudy to cloudy. Scattered afternoon and evening showers and thunderstorms will be possible, a few of which could be strong. Low temperatures tonight will be in the upper 50s to near 60s. Sunny and warm for the weekend. Near 90 Saturday, low 90s Sunday. Only isolated thunderstorms this weekend. Staying very warm into Monday and Tuesday. Cooler thunderstorms Wednesday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Hey, Billy, we're tracking some of these Supreme Court cases coming out. This is breaking news. This is going to be an interesting one in light of Joe Biden's executive order about spouses. There is not a constitutionally protected right. Let me start over. The U.S. Supreme Court finds that there is not a constitutionally protected right of the citizen to bring their spouse to the United States.
Ooh.
The court holds that a citizen does not have a fundamental liberty interest in her non-citizen spouse being admitted to the country.
Wow.
So it doesn't mean that you can't. It just doesn't mean you have the constitutionally protected right to
Yeah,
it.
that just because you're married to them, it doesn't automatically grant them citizenship. That's interesting. And the next layer you go into now, unfortunately, the difficulty here is it's contained inside of the Constitution, but birthright citizenship. That's going to be much more difficult to change. I understand that a lot of people say, we're going to change that. That's going to require a constitutional amendment. And that's going to be difficult to lift in this day and age. That's going to be really hard. But I think that's the direction that's going. And I can agree with that. I don't think that inside the Constitution, there is a constitutional right because you're married to someone that you're now a citizen of that country. And the example I would give is if you get married to someone that is from Spain, Italy, Germany, England, you don't become a citizen of that country. There's a process there. So it makes sense. That seems to be exactly the idea and makes things more difficult for Biden. That's going to be interesting.
All right. Who does it better being a feminine? Republicans or Democrats? There was an article in New York Magazine over the weekend. Are Republican women okay? And it makes the argument that Democrat women do femininity better than Republican women. They do it better. That's right. They can mix Barbie with football and healthcare with labor without tripping over themselves. They seem to be more comfortable in their own bodies. The women on the right appear in perpetual confusion and find themselves twisting into something unrecognizable. What do they mean by that? This author says that the kind of transformation that's taken place among Republican women from Barbara Bush and Elizabeth Dole and Laura Bush to Kristi Noem, Sarah Palin, MTG, and even our friend that visited the studio yesterday, Lauren Boebert, gets mentioned in this. What has happened to Republican women? Do you like the direction that Republican women have gone? Let's just think about it. They definitely have changed. They're no longer like Elizabeth Dole, especially those that lead this party. They're kind of more feisty, happy to pack guns like Lauren Boebert does, put it on her hip, and walk around and have that gun there if she needs it. They're willing to go out there and fight directly face to face for conservative principles. And years ago, I talked about the rise of the mama bear. And I think this is in part due to what the left has done by going after families. We're not in, and there's been plenty of studies that have shown this, that the left has gotten far more aggressively liberal, far more aggressively leftist than Republicans have gone conservative. And so when you have particularly your children being groomed in public schools to embrace LGBTQ ideology with books that are pornographic and sensational in libraries, you get mama bears that are going to get a little bit more frustrated, and they're not just interested in putting the pearls around their neck and having a nice conversation about what you're doing to their children. They want you to stop. And I like the direction that Republican women have gone. I think it's great. Look, my mother's a conservative woman. My wife is a conservative woman. They are fighters. They're in the public square. They voice their opinions. They try to change things. And I was in the room in the auditorium in 2008 when Sarah Palin accepted the nomination. And that was as vice president for John McCain's ticket. That was a turning point. I saw it. And I talk about this back then, tears in women's eyes as they saw Sarah Palin in her mid-40s stepping up. And it wasn't just the fact that it was a young woman now became the Republican vice presidential nominee. It was the fact that she was a fighter and she was tough and she was going to take it to Joe Biden. You remember that during those debates in 2008? She was great and people were excited about it. Now, what you have happening in the particularly in the Democrat Republican parties, is you're having a gender shift. Men are becoming more Republican, women are becoming more Democrat. And you get this article in the New York Magazine by a woman named Rebecca Traister. Okay, Rebecca Traister, she writes about this. Because you are a conservative woman and the parties are breaking and shifting by gender, you are abandoning your gender. And that is what this article is all about. If you read it, it's like a 40-minute screed about how dare you as a woman abandon the right to choose. How dare you as a woman support Donald Trump? Don't you realize what you're doing? You're abandoning your sex, which I find totally ironic because I can't even tell you what it means to be a woman. But they want to shame you. They want to shame you for that. This is where you're going to see a lot of effort from Democrats because you have broken with the distinctions that are taking place in our politics. You're an abandonment. You're an embarrassment to your own sex. How dare you be a conservative woman? So they put together a 40-minute, if you listen to it, audio. This has got to be like 200 paragraphs. Feels like it. Screed about how terrible of a person you are and you are rejecting your feminist identity. Listen to this. This is the closing line of the article. Women fundamentally cannot lead a party that wants to oppress women. They cannot, in fact, even be fully human within it. All right, so here's what I would like to do. I'd like to hear from the conservative women out there. Are you an abandonment to your feminist identity? Are you joining with a party that oppresses women? Are you a traitor to your own sex for being a Republican conservative woman? Give me a call, 303-696-1971, or text me on the 710 KNUS app. All right, let's go to Melissa in Lakewood. Melissa, you're a conservative woman.
Yeah, please tell us why you're a traitor. I'm teasing.
Well, good morning, you guys. I don't understand why they're not empowering women to have more self-respect for themselves. They talk about being able to get an abortion and health care, but they don't talk about all the diseases that you can get from sleeping around. I mean, there's diseases you can get that make you infertile. It's not just about getting pregnant. It's about protecting yourself and not getting yourself in a bad situation to have to need the government to help you.
I mean, Melissa, do you remember Life of Julia? Does that ring a bell? Life of Julia. Do you remember it, Billy?
No.
This came from the 2012 Obama presidential campaign about how Barack Obama and the Democrats were the best party to provide for the life of Julia. And they take you through from when Julia was a little girl all the way through her adulthood until she dies. And guess what happens to Julia during that entire time? She never gets married.
Yeah.
She becomes almost in a relationship with the government. It was one of the most bizarre ad campaigns where you're like, really? And you kind of look at where the Democrat Party has gone. It is single, unmarried women, college educated, and their government.
Yes. And in just my experience, because I have family members, I have to listen to NPR and watch CNN sometimes. And if you just look at Fox, the women are put together and they have some lesbian contributors. They're happy. And you watch some of the other shows and I'm just walking by the TV and they seem like unhinged and just looking for, something to be angry about instead of the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, Melissa, do you think conservative women are happier?
Absolutely.
Why is that? Why are they happier people than raging leftists?
I just don't think they're looking there. It's just the way of thinking in general, I think more on the right, is they're looking for the positive. They're looking for ways to improve instead of looking for things to be angry about and offended about.
But Melissa, I'm going to read a text message from Suzanne. She said conservative women never wanted to be feminists. Are you not a feminist, Melissa? I know you're a conservative woman. Are you not a feminist?
Because we believe in getting married and having kids and having a family. I mean, my mom brought me up to kind of be too independent, and I wish that I wasn't. I wish I would have gotten married when I was younger. I'm learning that too late now. It's not a bad thing to not be alone when you're older.
Now, Melissa, I got a question for you. There's kind of a movement right now called trad wives, which means traditional wives. The idea is they go back to one income. The wife stays home, does not have a career, takes care of the kids if there are any, and is the homemaker. What is your thoughts about that in our society? Should we be leaning more into that idea or not, and why?
Every person I've talked to that was brought up that way seems like they had a happier childhood. I mean, even if they didn't have the second income coming in, they liked coming home to mom. And I mean, you actually save money from daycare and stuff like that too. And other people aren't raising your kid.
Yeah. Now, here's the challenge I have inside of that one. Okay, here's the other part. Do you think it would be just as accepted in our society if it was instead the woman that had the career and it was the man that stayed home? So basically what you're doing is you're taking what are the acceptable societal gender roles and you're flipping them to where the woman is the provider and the male ends up being the homemaker. What do you think about that idea as well? And I'll tell you where I'm going in a second, but what do you think about the idea?
I think it's okay now. I think men would have been self-conscious about it 2 years ago, but as long as it's a healthy relationship, I think that's absolutely fine.
I would agree with you as well, and I'm happy to have that agreement with you. Now, here's the biggest challenge, I think, and I believe, Jeff, that you would lean into the idea that you would love to see more traditional wives, traditional relationships, someone staying home and taking care of the kids. Is that correct? I'm just guessing.
Yeah, what I appreciate is the realization that's happening among younger women that you're going to give a lot of time and energy to something.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, and if you want to go do a career, no problem with that. And I will say this, there's a lot of bizarre revisionism that's happening among conservatives, that somehow there wasn't a lot of sexism that took place in the 70s and 80s. Because my mother worked in professional settings and dealt with it. And she would talk about it. Like she just didn't get jobs because she was a woman. Yeah. So that bothers me. But
and then also when she was in the workplace, there were things that happened there as far as how they were treated, how they were talked about, and 100%. Also where their glass ceiling was.
Yeah. So the idea that conservatives have kind of like abandoned all that or gotten into some sort of revisionism that didn't take place. But I will say this. I like the fact that women, especially younger women, and I saw this at CCU when I was working there, going, all right, 40 years of editing footnotes in a legal career or managing spreadsheets as an accountant or 40 years raising kids and grandchildren and building a multi-generational legacy for our family, what's ultimately more valuable? So the fact that what I like, Billy, is that women have the option, and at least it's swinging back, in my opinion, in a positive way, going, giving 40 years of your life to a job, it's not that
yeah.
great.
I mean, and as Melissa, you know that on our deathbeds, yours, mine, Jeff's, the listeners, the one thing we are not going to say is, I wish I spent more time working. I wish I spent more time at my job. Now, Melissa, here's the challenge I think I have with some of the traditional idea and the traditional family, the idea of having one of the people in the relationship staying home. And I would also submit This is part, not a large portion, but part of the reason why we are seeing so many single parents, both male and female, because it is incredibly difficult right now to raise someone on single income if you have a spouse and a partner. If you're only providing for one adult and a child, economically, that is easier than providing for two adults and a child with one income. I believe in part where we have gone with our pay structure and where we've gone with employment, it is a disincentive for those traditional leave it to beaver, father knows best type of families that we all opine for as being some of the best times in America. I think that our economic situation does not allow that to happen anymore. And it's our own fault that we don't have those core families that way anymore. Ideas?
I don't really have ideas, but I wonder how many women maybe that are like that woman that had, she got artificially inseminated and she was older and she ended up passing away. Would she have, if she thought she could be the one breadwinner in the family with a man, I don't know. It seems like maybe more women that were super rich would be with a guy if they would do that with them. Instead of just doing it by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I've told my wife for years, honey, I love you with all of my heart and soul. But if a really rich woman comes by and wants to have me be a kept man, I'm sorry, I'm kidding, but just a little.
Melissa, I do got a question for you, and then I want to get to Jacqueline as well. And feel free to give us a call, especially you conservative ladies, 303-696-1971. This article makes the argument, New York Magazine, that you are joining with a party that fundamentally oppresses women and that you are abandoning your own feminist identity by being a conservative Republican woman. What say you?
That's more an example of people that just don't probably know a lot of Republicans personally. I'm actually just coming out at my job a little bit. And because now I know, everybody knows that I'm a really, really nice person and I'm not racist. And honestly, they may not know anybody. They're just ignorant sometimes.
But Melissa, don't they do this? They do this to Black conservatives. They do it to Hispanic conservatives. They do it to Korean conservatives. Get in your place. How dare you be a woman that rejects the Democrat Party? Don't you understand what feminism is? You should be thanking us. Those conservatives are taking away your fundamental rights. Get in your place. How do you feel about a Democrat Party that tells you to get in your place?
I'm so frustrated right now. I'm trying to learn how to communicate because we have to. I mean, we can't have Biden again.
I agree with you, Melissa.
I don't even know how. Yeah, thank you.
No, I thank you so much for being on the call today. Melissa's line will be open 303-696-1971. Jacqueline, Sydney, Nebraska, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Well, good morning, fellas. Yeah, I've been listening off and on here. You know, I had a grandmother who had 14 children. She and her mother drove a delivery wagon in Dodge City, Kansas. The other grandmother raised cattle, could shoot and ride as good as any man, and she raised 13 children. My grandmother raised strong women and strong sons. 7 of them, plus 2 of my aunts, were in World War II to Korea. And 2 of them, my aunts were Army WACs. In this country, women work beside the man, and we built this country. They raised strong, conservative, God-fearing women and men. My dad raised 4 daughters along with my mother. And all of us girls learned how to work and how to work hard, how to respect each other, and how to earn respect. Now, that's a difference. There's no such thing as feminism. That's some stupid, goofy, bobblehead word that weak, insecure women come up with, because strong women don't need those excuses.
Jacqueline, I got to ask you, though, I got a text message here, 0893. How does any woman vote for Trump? He is everything they stand against.
I don't believe that. He's not everything that I stand against. I'm a strong, God-fearing woman. I'm for this country, and I'm for Donald Trump because he is for this country. You got nothing to compare when you look at the Democrats. Joe Biden is the perfect fall guy and the perfect patsy for Barack Obama and the Democrats.
Jacqueline, I got to tell you, Jacqueline, you're a breath of fresh air. What do you think happened in our culture that moved away from creating women like you, strong, tough, go along right there with the men, build this country, love this country, women? How did we get to a point where, like I said, the life of Julia, the woman lives alone. She's in a relationship with the government. She never builds a family. What's going on there?
They took men out of the home, George. They started demasculating our men and making women, giving women a check to have children, not to have the man in the home. So they took the man in this country. They attack the males all the time. They're attacking them every day in this country. We need to stand up for our men because the Democrats and the left are trying to ruin them. If we don't have our men, we don't have a country.
Now, Jacqueline, I want to explore that idea of the government taking the men out of the house. What do you mean by that?
Well, the welfare system started in the late 1950s, 1960s. Women were getting pregnant right and left, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And the welfare systems in the state of Colorado, which I can attest to across the country, grew so fast and so hard. Young women knew that if they wanted a check, they could have a baby and get paid to do it. And a lot of women, I know women for over 50 years that have been on welfare, that have had 4 or 5 children in the city of Chicago, in a family, in a home, apartment, whatever. You take 7 children out of 10, never knew their father, and there are only 2 that might know the father. There's no father in those homes. And those women have multiple children with multiple men. They get food stamps. It used to be $127. They get now about $300 to $400 per child. They'll get anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 in food stamps. They get rental assistance. They don't need a man around.
Okay,
they
now,
can
Jacqueline,
do whatever they want.
now, hang on a sec, Jacqueline. Now, you're saying they don't need a man around. What I'm asking you is, why were those programs started? Because what I'm doing is I'm challenging your assumption that the program was started because the government wanted to split up the family. My premise is those programs were started because we allowed men to abdicate their responsibility as a father and a husband. We allowed this to happen because we allowed the guy to walk away from that woman and say, yeah, you and I had fun that night or that month or that 6 months or that year together, but that baby, that's your problem and I have no responsibility. That's my premise.
You're absolutely right. But it was actually started to help women who had men that were in Vietnam in the late 50s. That's when it was started. It was to help all these mothers with their children. And it was blown up. It was taken advantage of like everything else, like human services, HUD, the rest of the thing. It just blew up. And people realized that they could take these programs and they could use them and manipulate them. And that is what they've done. I work for the state of Colorado, and I also work for HUD. And I will tell you now, I hope to God that we get a president in that will change these programs. They need gutted. And I'll tell you, the problem with Denver and all the homeless, it's not going to go anywhere as long as you have Democrats in office that can run these things. I've come to the conclusion that parts of our government are the largest drug traffickers and money laundering agencies in the world.
Yeah, I can see that now. I like your idea on the idea of how the welfare state started. And I do think that part of it is the lack of accountability of men. We didn't want to hold them responsible. And since then, our society, we haven't wanted to hold them responsible. And that, to me, is a larger portion of the conversation about single parenthood than we are willing to have, in part because us dudes don't want to accept the responsibility. But thanks for the phone call. I really appreciate it. Now, Jeff, you've got some breaking news for us.
Breaking news coming in from the U.S. Supreme Court. This is going to be a big one with regards to guns. The Supreme Court rejects the challenge to the constitutionality of a federal law that bans the possession of a gun by someone who has been the subject of a domestic violent restraining order. The vote is 8-1 with only Justice Thomas dissenting. The court holds that when an individual has been found by a court to pose a credible threat to the physical safety of another, the individual may be temporarily disarmed consistent with the Second Amendment. Roberts explains here, since the founding, our nation's firearm laws have included provisions preventing individuals who threaten physical harm to others from misusing firearms. As applied to the facts of this case, the section 922 fits comfortably within this tradition. So bottom line, you can't have your guns taken away if you're a threat to violence with other people, so long as it's done through due process.
We do need to take people that are accused of domestic violence. We do need to take their firearms away. They shouldn't have access to them. And that's a personal opinion.
8-1.
And yeah. And the reason I think this is strong and a good step in the right direction, because if you look at the patterns of someone that is going to go on to commit a mass shooting, the number one indicator beyond religion, beyond skin color, beyond part of the country, education, beyond political affiliation, is domestic violence. That is the number one indicator of someone whose violence is going to escalate and impact the community.
Listen to this line. Roberts writes that some courts have misunderstood the methodology of our recent Second Amendment cases. These precedents, this is going to be a line that's going to be used a lot. These precedents were not meant to suggest a law trapped in amber.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Otherwise, he explains, the Second Amendment would only provide protection to muskets and sabers.
Wow. Now, again,
so it goes both ways.
There's a real secondary layer to that too. and the issue being trapped in amber, because this is now the third instance in recent rulings in which members on the conservative side, we've seen Amy Coney Barrett, and now we've seen Roberts push back on the originalism argument of Alito and Thomas. That's the secondary. That's the subtext.
This was 8-1.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying that Robert's statement, the subtext in Robert's statement is an attack on the originalism. It's the attack. Amy Coney Barrett just a couple of days ago accused, in her opinion, that she was writing, accused Thomas of history shopping, saying you can't just pick out one historical example and pull it out of context and say you're being an originalist. You're misquoting and you're misusing that idea.
I've seen some legal scholars say it's a debate within originalism.
Yeah.
So it's not a rejection of originalism. No. It's a debate within originalism.
Yeah. As far as how far does that go? And if you're talking about originalism, taking the one anecdotal example is absent of the larger, broader context. Yep. And I think they're correct in that. Yeah.
Because Roberts would say that if this law, if you look at the Second Amendment as trapped in amber, he says the Second Amendment would only provide protection to muskets and sabers.
Yep. And you could only have it if you were part of a well-regulated state militia. And so unless you're part of that well-regulated state militia, that you couldn't do it. You couldn't. And that's only because personally, now with the Second Amendment, we like to pretend that English doesn't exist.
I have a little bit of a disagreement, but I want to. But the big thing here being with regards to this and red flag and George Brockler and Dagna and all that debate happening in the state of Colorado.
It says yes,
you have those. I don't want to put words in RMGO's mouth, but I think RMGO is all the way, never any restriction.
Yeah. And the conversations I've had with them, that I would lead to that conclusion as well, because I've asked them about things like domestic violence and people that are on addicted drugs and things like that. And the conversations I've had with their representatives say, no, there should be that Hunter Biden should be able to have his gun. that the person that's a domestic violence abuser potentially should be able to have their gun.
And the Supreme Court going 8-1, if it follows due process temporarily, this is going to bring a lot to it. We'll continue this conversation. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in Berlin, I'm Trent Murray, and here are the top stories we're following. Amtrak has experienced significant disruptions along its busy East Coast corridor services after power outages. Services were suspended Thursday between Philadelphia and New Haven, Connecticut, as crews worked to restore power in the New York area. The disruption came just hours after Amtrak warned that extreme heat in America's Northeast could impact services. South Korea has fired warning shots along its demarcation line with the Communist North. Laura Westbrook has the details.
This is the third time that North Korean troops have crossed the demarcation line inside the DMZ this month, and the third time that South Korean forces have fired on them to return. The Joint Chiefs of Staff have said this latest incident also appears to be accidental, and this is a heavily forested area where mistakes have happened, but especially since heightened activity has returned to the DMZ since South Korea left this 2018 de-escalating agreement that's seen both sides reinforce their barricades as tensions continues to grow on the Korean peninsula.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Trent Murray in Berlin on Salem News Channel.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today. Want to take
One of the great things I love about working here, Billy, is that Peter Boyles hangs around.
I know.
It's always a great conversation,
it's so
man.
Cool. It's so neat.
The legend.
Yeah, I know. Getting to pick his brain during the morning and stuff.
He is so sharp.
Ridiculous.
He's on Saturdays, by the way. If you want to hear Pete, I think it's 9 to noon, right?
9 to 1.
9 to 1.
Yeah.
4 hours.
Oh, yeah.
4 hours. This guy
he
is
has the
just
three,
as
and he wanted to
sharp
be
as
extra.
he always is.
Oh, he is. It's fantastic. It's great. And so got to tune in. Pete's going to be talking with his own personal twist on some things this week that we've touched on as well. So it'll be kind of cool. It'll be really neat.
It is great. Text messages in support of Jacqueline. Going back. 3 cheers for Jacqueline.
Yep. And speaking of Jacqueline, go Jack Phillips. That's what Pete's going to be addressing, the stuff that we talked earlier in the week.
Oh, he got Jack?
And he's going to be fighting the Colorado Supreme Court. And so how that went down. And Pete, again, remember, you got to tune in Saturday because he is the guy that first picked up the gauntlet for Jack. He's the guy that when Jack was being attacked said, no, this is wrong. We got to help this guy. He's the guy that did the very first fundraiser for Jack to help him out. So Pete's been there since step 1. So yeah, check him out on Saturday.
So no more court cases today. The big one being 8-1 decision that would allow you, if you've been found by a court to pose a credible threat to the physical safety of another, that the individual may be temporarily disarmed in consistent with the Second Amendment. So this is going to be a big one for the red flag laws. And if you've been in Colorado, you know this is a big issue. It's a big issue in George Brockler's case. In this particular decision, 8-1, Alito coming over, Roberts, conservatives joining with liberals, only Thomas being out there in opposition to that. So let me know what you think of this. Some people saying that this is good. Others saying that this is going to be a big threat to our Second Amendment rights. Text message 5637. RMGO is a grifter organization and George Brockler is a Soros-funded DA.
That's great.
All of the above. By the way, I want to take a little point of personal privilege here, Billy. You meet him regularly because my kids hang out with me in the studio. Steve-O's birthday today.
Oh,
11 years old. So happy birthday to Steven.
Okay,
he's the youngest.
He has to get on the microphone.
That's Josh.
Josh. Oh, that's right.
That's
different.
Josh.
I forgot.
Steve's the youngest one.
Why didn't you bring the birthday kid in? I'm sorry. I have to apologize. I have to apologize. I know the ages of the kids, but I mix up the names. I don't know the names. In fact, I was talking to the youngest one yesterday. I'm so
Steve.
sorry.
Yep.
Okay, Steve. So
the birthday boy.
Yep. Okay. So I was talking to him yesterday, and I'm sitting there. I don't remember your name, and I'm
So
sorry.
they
That's a personal thing that I have.
This will help you chronologically in the Bible. So the oldest is Josh.
Okay.
Second is Daniel. And then Stephen was in the New Testament.
Yeah.
He's the youngest one.
That
He was
helps.
the first martyr.
Okay.
Which was funny growing up with him because we explained how he got the name, right? He's named after the very first martyr in the New Testament.
Yeah.
And he was martyred by the religious leaders at the time throwing rocks at him.
Ooh.
And so he goes, wait, you named me after... They threw rocks at him?
He's like, wait, hang on. And also, the problem with that really is having 2 older brothers. You can't get mad at them when they're throwing rocks at him. They can be out in the yard, go whap, whap, and they're like, we're just doing what Dad
living
did
up
the
to your
Bible.
name.
Yeah. Now, okay, that is so cool. And happy birthday to Stephen. I love the fact that you pulled that out of the Bible. Our oldest son is Maximilian, and he is named for a Catholic saint.
Nice.
Yeah, he's named for a Catholic saint that was sainted. This is going to get to me. Okay, I got to. Oh man, a man that gave up his life during the Holocaust to save a Jewish family. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he became a Catholic saint.
Yeah. And they were coming to take the family to kill him. And he said, and the guy, he's like, no, take me instead. And they said, you want to go to the chamber instead of this family? He goes, yes, I will.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, in the sense that you named him after that.
Oh, exactly.
Not,
yeah.
not that that's what the Maximilian had to do.
Think about that. Think about having and being willing to do that.
Yeah.
What that takes.
Don't you like how when you name your kids, you set those standards for them?
Oh, God, yeah. Yes.
Like this is what you're named after. Like
Yep.
Joshua here in studio hanging out with me today. Obviously the Bible.
Yeah.
Right. Be strong and very courageous.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Just like Joshua. And then Daniel, the lion's den, and then being the advisors to kings and prayer and being thrown in the lion's den because you refused to not stop praying.
Oh.
And then Stephen, first
strong.
martyr.
That
Stand
is-
for your
that is-
faith
oh,
all the
man.
way to the end. And
You're
then
getting me.
Maximilian, dude.
Yeah, you're getting me. That's my
There you go.
eyes are leaking. The other one, my oldest daughter, Catherine, is named for both of her great grandmothers. It's for my grandmother.